So if you look at this example right here, we have an absolute value graph, and we are going to put all the key pieces of information we need when graphing or answering these questions. So the very, very first thing you want to do if you get an absolute value graph and you have to graph it is identify the vertex. So what is the vertex? The vertex is always H, comma K. So go ahead, Aiden, what's the vertex? Perfect. My vertex is 4, -2. The slope is the A value. So that's what we're going to go to the right of my vertex. So in this case, my slope is 2. I might ask you about the domain and the range. So the domain of an absolute value is always all reals. The domain of an absolute value is always all reals. The range is always going to go back to the K value of the graph and whether it is positive or negative. So if the slope is positive, then the range are going to be Y values greater than or equal to the K value of the vertex. The last thing I want you to be able to do is to tell me what all of this means in words. So that's what we just did on the warm-up. What does a positive 4 in my vertex mean? That means that this graph went right 4 units from the origin. The -2 tells me that it went down 2 units from the origin. And the +2 on A is that this graph is going to be stretched by 2. It's going to be more narrow. So then I'm going to plot my point, apply my slope, and again, these are absolute values, so they're V's. So at that vertex, if I go up 2 and right 1, I need to go up 2 and left 1. If I go up 4 and right 2, I go up 4 and left 2. We are not going to worry about creating tables. Okay, so just one last summary of what happens to the vertex when. Movement inside the absolute values is going to move your graph left or right, also known as horizontal movements. It will move it left if it's a positive. It will move it right if it's a negative. A value after the absolute value or outside the absolute value bars is going to move my graph vertically. That means it's going to shift it up or down. It goes down if the value is negative. It will go up if the value is positive. The value in front of the absolute value is going to make my graph either narrow or wide. So it's going to affect the overall slope of the graph. If it's a positive greater than 1 value, then it's going to be stretched. If it's a value between 0 and 1, it will be compressed. And lastly, if there is a negative in front of my absolute value function, then the absolute value function is going to be reflected and will now open down. And then it will change my range to be less than or equal to.